Come on, Livingston. We gotta go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We gotta go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Road is long.
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien.
Lead! And Livingston have the lead!
Man, can score.
If we march together.
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates! And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
Come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, Livingston. We gotta go.
Hello and welcome back to Talk Livi, the podcast dedicated to everything Livingston Football Club and Scottish football. My name is Angus and today I'm joined by Euan. Euan, how are you doing, man?
I'm really good, mate. This weekend I wasn't on the end of a Davy Martindale hairdryer, so I'm in great spirits. I'm sure some of the players were probably not in the best of spirits going into the second half at Stenny, but it clearly did the trick, didn't it? So yeah, progress in the cup. We also got a decent cup draw. We'll obviously come on to talk about that as well. Our women's team, brilliant result away at Rossvale. And yeah, we've got 2 games to look forward to previewing. So yeah, in good spirits, mate. Good spirits. What about yourself?
Yeah, very much the same. I'm very, very glad that we didn't pull, in Aberdeen and we're at the hands of an embarrassing kind of cup exit. But yeah, thankfully, through to the next round, victory for the women's team, and then we've got two games against 2 of the biggest sides in the country, 2 of the best sides in the country to look forward to as well, which is, it's all about being in the top flight. But yeah, looking forward to it. And as always, you can find this episode as well as all of our others on your preferred podcast streaming sites. So just search for Talk Livi and follow us or subscribe to ensure you don't miss another episode.
We'll kick the episode off by discussing our Scottish Cup victory over Stenhousemuir, as the gaffer had a wee go at the players to spark a second half fight back.
Our women's side faced a top of the table clash against Rossvale as they saw off a second half scare to secure a huge 3 points.
I caught up with Hearts TV commentator Laurie Dunsire to talk all things Hearts ahead of their visit to Tony Macaroni Arena.
And finally, we look ahead to another trip to Glasgow as the Lions take on the champions Celtic in midweek action.
A weekend marked in the calendar for every Scottish football fan is Scottish Cup weekend. The Lions kicked off their campaign to get to Hampden as they travelled to Oakview to take on Stenhousemuir. Despite trailing at half-time, 3 goals in 7 minutes in the second half would see Livy ease into the 5th round eventually. And guess what were your thoughts on the game?
I mean, we talked about it in the preview of this one that Livingston and the Scottish Cup, not the best of friends. The start of being, quarterfinals, the last time we made it was 2005, good while ago. I think David Martindale came out into the media and, spoke about that he would love to change the fortunes because it has been so long. And then that first half performance is like, here we go again, essentially. Going 1-0 down to Stenhousemuir, scoring a good enough header from a corner kick, but you just have that kind of feeling sometimes that it's not going to be our day. Things aren't clicking. We're not getting into the run of play that we're kind of used to and whatnot. And a cup shock is very much on the cards in that instance. We go into half time, and now what has been well documented is the manager has fully let the players know exactly what he thought of the performance. He's let not only the players know, I think he's let anybody standing outside. He's let the foundations of the building know exactly. I think everybody was on shook after that. I think, but and a credit to the players, they took all of it, took it all the chin, came out the second half, and they quickly dealt with it. We get back into the game, with Bruce Anderson making a good run down the line, cuts the ball back to Pittman, and Pittman, taking a shot from the edge of the box, goes into the bottom corner very nicely. Game on, and I think from there, once we get that equaliser, you can kind of see the kind of motion of the game kind of changing, and it's going basically into our favour. Kind of keeping the ball from that instance there with Stephen Bradley. Just being positive on the ball, maybe not enough of that in the first half in terms of the attacking output, beats a couple of players and forces a foul, and then for this free kick, Euan, absolutely tremendous. We've not had too many free kick takers in the last couple of years. I mean, I think we had Keegan Jacobs in the first season. I think Josh Mullins scored one in the COVID season. Don't think we've had many chances on goal from them in recent years, or any goals scored from them. I might be mistaken.
I was having this chat, funnily enough, at the Rossvale game with Blair, who does all the videography for the club. And yeah, Josh Mullins was the last direct free kick that we scored, which was against Hamilton Accies, as you say, during the COVID season, just before Christmas that season. Then prior to that, we couldn't think of anything else before the Keegan Jacobs free kick at Fir Park. So yeah, it's been a little while since we scored one of those, but we were right behind it in the terrace, and it was one of those ones that left his foot and it was in. It was brilliant vantage point for watching it. It was a perfect strike by Stephen Bradley.
Aye, absolutely beautiful. As soon as it leaves that left foot, just goes straight into the top corner, and that kind of footage that Blair captured as well for the game. You can hear them. I think as soon as it goes in, I think somebody makes a comment like "Oh yeah" or something like that. I don't know if it's him, perhaps. It's just an absolutely superb strike. And yeah, from 2-1 on there, I think it would take something drastic to happen for us to end up losing a grip of that game. I think that kind of quality came out. I think the Stenhousemuir manager Naismith came out and said that however well Stenny played, sometimes the quality on the day is just that wee bit different, and that ended up shining through. We get that third goal with a good pick out from Penrice to Bradley, who takes a delightful touch around the player, nestles it in to make it 3-1. And yeah, from there on, we don't need to really go and trouble ourselves too much. We can kind of just take control of the game, and that quality shine through in the end, which is good that we got that adversary in the first half, but didn't put our heads down and continued to battle away, continued to do what we thought was the right way to play football and the right way for us to get the advantage into the match. So, albeit I think that the players were too terrified to perhaps do anything different, but sometimes it's needed. Sometimes that kind of thing can be the kick up the backside. I don't think you'll find any of the players who will be particularly disagreeing with that instance, with the first half performance as well. So, yeah, very solid into the next round of the cup, which is the main thing as well. Solid enough performance in the second half. Yeah, pleasing overall.
Yeah, as you say, it was at half time you're sitting going, this has the hallmarks of any typical Scottish Cup shock. Lower league teams not had a lot of the ball, they've had a set piece, they've scored from the set piece. The top flight sides struggling to create opportunities, struggling to break them down, and that was kind of the vibe at half time. So for anyone who's somehow managed to miss this Davy Martindale half-time rant, basically somebody put a video together of Davy on LFC Live saying he had a little go at the players at half-time, and somebody at Stenny has recorded a voice note outside the Livi dressing room where it's Davy's having some choice words with some individuals in the team, but as you say, it's clearly got the right response. But going on to that first half performance, it was very side to side. Granted, we dominated the ball. I think we had 73% of the ball in the game, which is we're probably not used to week on week, in fairness, when we play in the top flight. But we did dominate the ball and we were dominating the game. But there was just a lack of tempo. There was a lack of pace in how we were playing. Going side to side, and give Stenny some credit. They forced us into the wide areas and thought we can come and deal with crosses into our box. And they did that on a couple of occasions. Morgan Boys had a couple of headers, one that landed on the roof of the net right at the tail end of the half. Bruce Anderson had a couple of headers, one easily saved in the first half as well. But the goal comes, it's Stenny's first flurry up the park. They get the corner, and to be fair, it's a very good header. I think boy Nicky Jameson's got in front of Jack Fitzwater to glance it into the top corner, and as you say, you're looking at us being the first game on Sports Team for a change, because we're the biggest shock of the round at that point on Saturday evening. wouldn't have mattered anyway if we were the biggest shock on Saturday, because Aberdeen managed to top trump us on Monday night. But I think Davy was well within his rights to have a bit of a go at the players. We talked about how the team would line up for the game, Angus. There was only 2 changes, and it was Pittman and Holt coming in for Omionga and Sean Kelly. So it was a very strong side that we put out, a team that's went and won back-to-back games in the top flight. So you should expect them to be doing better against, no disrespect to Stenny, a League 2 side. Second half, it was like night and day. We moved the ball a lot quicker. Our tempo was a lot better. It was less touches on the ball. And the first goal comes, it's maybe a little bit more direct, getting Bruce down the channel. Manages to, despite slipping, keep a hold of the ball, and he's rolled it into Pittman on the edge of the box, and Pitts has got that goal. And I think because we got that goal so early in the second half as well, it probably took a little bit of tension off the players, thinking if it gets to the last 10 minutes, you start getting desperate. You don't want to be on the end of a shock. And that really settled us down into the game. And Bradley's free kick, I've already spoke about it. It was an absolute peach. And apparently Stephen Bradley was one of the players Davey kind of pinpointed for a little bit of criticism. And fair play to the young lad. He came out second half and showed a lot of balls. You know, that free kick for a starter, and then his second goal he's taken brilliantly as well. Great ball by Penrice. He zipped it into him, which probably makes Bradley's mind up on what he's going to do with it when he receives it. He takes that touch and then opens his body up, right foot, slots it under the keeper, and at that point it's game over essentially. As Gary Naismith said after the game, quality just shone through in the second half, and we could have had more. We had other efforts on goal. Stephen Kelly had an effort just wide. Bahambula's had a couple of efforts, one which the keeper's made a decent save from, and then Curtis Guthrie had one at the tail end which he's dragged past the post. So it could have been a lot more comfortable in the end than it ended up being. But the main objective in cup football is getting through the tie, and I think there's positives to take from how the team reacted in the second half to being behind as well. So there are positives to take from the game, and it was always, we spoke about it, it's always got the potential for a banana skin. So it's just very good to not be the banana skin and be the big upset in the rounds. And looking at the draw, we've got a decent opportunity of progressing to the quarterfinals, albeit I think it's another very tricky potential tie. Either way, whichever way it goes, that game's still to be played. So we've got Queen's Park or Inverness at home. What's your thoughts on the draw then, Angus?
I think you're looking at it as, you know, a team in lower league opposition as a positive. You're talking about it being, though, the team who's top of the championship, and I think Inverness are starting to turn around a wee bit of form now that they've got some players back from injury. It'll be interesting to see which one we get. I think, you know, at the moment, we'd maybe be looking for Inverness, but I think we know that in recent years that they've caused us a number of troubles. I think, they put us out the Scottish Cup last season, and was it Inverness who beat us in the Premier Sports Cup?
So the COVID season, Inverness knocked us out up at Inverness, which was one of the worst games of football I've ever watched, and there was about a 75 mile an hour wind going across the Cali Stadium as well. So that was a horrible afternoon. But as you say, they beat us earlier on in the season, right at the start of the campaign in the Premier Sports Cup or the Viaplay Cup or whatever it does get referred to as these days. So they're a banana skin themselves. I always relate Inverness to being a cup team, and I think it stems back to the Celtic shocks of many, many years ago. So I always have this vibe that Inverness do quite well in cup competitions, and
Inverness have won the Scottish Cup last 10 years, did they?
They have indeed. It was under John Hughes, who ex-Livingston manager as well. So yeah, they've got a bit of history with the Scottish Cup. So it's a tie that we need to be wary of. But if you were need to pick one of the two sides just now, it would probably be Inverness, based on league position, based on form, because Queen's Park are absolutely flying this season. They're probably taking quite a few people by surprise as well, being top of the championship at the halfway point. So I think either way, you've got a very tricky tie. Would you prefer Queen's Park for the gate? You might get a better crowd through from Glasgow than you would from Inverness as well. So there's maybe elements of it, but as you say, getting lower league opposition, for an opportunity to get into the last 8 of the competition, and then you've got a couple of all lower league ties as well in there for a potential quarter-final draw. So there's a decent opportunity for us to try and progress in the cup.
Yeah, lower league opposition at home as well. We really do need to be looking to progress. I think Davy will be hammering into his players that they've got such a great opportunity here to be very much on the way to Hampden, depending on another draw if we make it through this. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I think it'll just be interesting as well if it does end up being Queen's Park. It'll be interesting to see what they're like, just because we've played Queen's Park in the past, but it's been in Hampden when it was like third division and whatnot. We've not really seen this new look outfit. So even just from that aspect, it'll be interesting to see maybe a glimpse of one of the teams who's going to come up, or if they win the championship, or if they come up through the playoffs or whatnot. So yeah, it'll be interesting either way. Two decent enough sides, and I think it'll make for quite a good cup tie. I think a lot of people will be saying that both teams are very much capable of coming away with a result against us, which is fair enough. But with us being top half of the top flight and at home, I think we've got to be confident in our own abilities that we'll go and progress into the next round.
As you say, it was good to see that Davy was taking it so seriously. As we mentioned, he could have ran changes. He could have made 6 or 7 changes to the team. Probably still had a decent team out in the park on Saturday. But as we said, he only made 2 changes from a team that's won back-to-back games in the top flight. You've got to credit Davy for his selection in the game as well, don't you?
Yeah, of course. I think although maybe at the first half he would have been regretting the choice of some of them, maybe, I don't know, maybe he would have been, if he'd asked him at half time what he thought about his selection, I think they might have been singling out a couple of players, but I don't think there was any changes at half time, so he gave them the chance to to make up for it and whatnot. But solid enough performance from us, and when we needed it, the manager got the best out of the players.
Well, we've got something to look forward to, a 5th round tie at home. Here's hoping we can make progress in the next round as well.
Our women's team were on the road and faced Rossvale in a top-of-the-table clash. Despite a second-half fight back from the hosts, the Lionesses did enough to hold on for a big 3 points. Euan, you were there for the game. What was the game like?
3-2 makes it sound like it was a thriller, but it was a game lacking in a bit of quality. I think you could tell that the teams are fairly evenly matched to a degree, and that kind of showed. Livi switched to playing a 4-4-2 at the weekend. Typically they play with a back 3 with wing backs either side and 2 up top. And it was Brogan, Anderson and Jen Dodds that started up top for this game as well. But yeah, it was a slow start, very slow start, I thought, from Livi. And I have to say, probably ended up scoring against the run of play. Rossvale had a few very, very good chances to kick the game off. Long range free kick, the number 3 for Rossvale, I think, was willing to shoot from anywhere that she got a free kick and was causing havoc with the efforts on goal. She had a very good striker. Charlotte Ferguson tipped the first one wide. From the resulting corner, they had a header cleared off the line. They had another header that went just wide shortly after that. And then again, the number 3 for Rossvale had another long range effort which cracked the underside of the crossbar and bounced down. And again, caused a bit of panic in the 6-yard box. But as I say, Livi definitely scored against the run of play. They'd struggled to kind of get any fluid kind of rhythm into their game at this point, and it was a deep free kick from Tash Rue, which has gone over the top of Rossvale defence, and Beth Mackay, who was making her first start for the club after signing just a few weeks ago, left foot slotted it underneath the on-rushing goalkeeper, and somehow Livi were in front. And it's probably then this 20-minute spell, probably the second half of the first half, where Livi kicked into gear a little bit and took full advantage of some mistakes and sloppy play by Rossvale. The number 6 for Rossvale, centre midfielder, I thought was very, very good at playing out from the ball. Been impressed by her when I've seen her play, but it is the risk when you try and play out from the back that you might get caught in the ball, and that's exactly what happens. So the second goal, she gets caught on the ball just outside the 18-yard box. Brogan Anderson's been really quick to react and press, and she's then lobbed it round the goalkeeper to make it 2-0 at that point. then we managed to get the third goal. We've having not seen a direct free kick scored by a Livingston player in so many moons, then see two in one weekend. Beth Mackay has one that's close to a carbon copy of Stephen Bradley's one, right into the top corner, and it's 3-0 at half time. And as I say, during that 20-minute spell, Livy could have been further ahead. Lucy Brown had a couple of decent opportunities on the right-hand side, put one over the bar and then dragged one past the far post. And it was bizarre. You couldn't quite believe that they were 3-0 up, given how they started the game. And as I say, it was a very, very scrappy affair. Second half, I have to say, Livy were probably under pressure for the majority of the second half. Again, lack of kind of fluidity, lack of getting the ball down and playing. The conditions did get a bit worse in the second half. It was that kind of misty, really wet rain blowing across Petershill Park. But Rossvale got a goal pretty near the start of the second half. Corner kick, corner's not cleared. Rossvale have reacted to the second ball, and it's a volley into the bottom corner. Gets Rossvale back in the game. But again, I think the girls were very good and professional and trying to see the game out until they conceded probably with about 10 minutes to go. Again, it came from a corner kick. It seemed to be where Rossvale were getting most of their joy. In the second half was from dead balls, and it was a free header which has managed to creep its way into the corner. But you have to give credit to the girls. They dug in. It's probably a game last season that they would have sacrificed 3 points and might have only came away there with a point, or maybe even lost the game last year. But they dug in. They showed a lot of grit, determination to get over the line. And as you say, it's a massive 3 points, given that Renfrew had also lost earlier that day to Ayr United, which I think extends their lead at the top of the league to now 11 points. So it was a massive result for the girls, albeit not by far and away not their best performance of the season, but against the teams in and around them. It's probably, again, last year where they slipped up was the head-to-heads with the teams around them, and that's them now won back-to-back games against Rossvale, who I would say outside of Livy are definitely the team to watch in the league.
Massive result. I think, checking the Twitter updates up at half time and seeing they were 3-0 up, I couldn't believe my eyes, just because it was such a convincing kind of scoreline, at that kind of point. I think most of the other games have been, kind of reasonably close affairs. I think the last one at home was a last-minute winner. The one before that was only 2-1 as well. But yeah, I think it's an interesting one because, obviously delight at the result and, going 11 points clear. I think, for the players, they will still be a little bit frustrated about, not being able to play that kind of football that they're know that they can do. I think, speaking to Paul quite a lot throughout the season, he's talked about how, the team have that battling capability now. They have that kind of more emphasis. They're more able to to dig in when it matters and it gets them the points. And I think this is another example of that. Maybe it's in sacrifice of some of the nicer football that they would maybe like to play, and the fact that they've came away from a tough away game with 3-2 win because of that. Do you think that's a worthy sacrifice, Euan, or do you think it's a pose for concern for the future? Do you think that balance is going to be needed to be thinned out a little bit more?
I think you need to get the right balance, and the girls, we've spoke about it week on week on the podcast, Angus. The girls are more than capable of playing some very good football at times. We spoke about that after the game against Ayr United. A couple of the goals they scored it was great football that they played. But any team that's successful has to have that grit and determination to get over the line and get results. And the girls have shown that quite a lot this season. And as we said, it was probably something we were maybe a little bit critical of them in previous seasons where we've watched them. So, as I say, there's a way to get that balance right. But at the weekend, I think it just showed how close the two teams can be between Livy and Rossvale. But it was a game that there was games last season where Rossvale stole points against Livy, and earlier on this season they were on the end of a couple of defeats, one in the league, one in the cup. So they were proven to be a bit of a bogey team for Livy, and the last couple of games I think the girls have got that bit of confidence against them and know they can beat them on their day, and they've got the quality to beat Rossvale. So yeah, very good result, as I say. A couple of things tactically. I noticed Tash Rue was stepping out the back four quite a lot at times, especially in the second half. She kind of went roaming a little bit. I don't know if that was a tactical thing to try and win the ball higher up the park and put Rossvale under a bit of pressure, but it's maybe just something I kind of spotted in the second half. And maybe another thing, that was made quite a few changes in the second half, and I don't know if that disrupted the flow a little bit. As I say, it's just a couple of things I picked up on watching the game, but overall, not the best performance on the eye. But at the end of the day, that game was all about the result, and the girls have managed to get the result. And when they had the opportunity, they showed their quality.
Yeah, it's 3-2, 11 points clear. Do you think for now it's just, keeping their heads on the ground and not focusing too much on that point gap and, continuing to play the game?
Exactly, Angus. They need to just keep focusing and take it week by week. As long as they keep doing their job, picking up the results, they're going to have a very successful season, and it should see them to promotion. And at the end of the day, that's the overall goal for the team, is to progress up the pyramid system in the women's game. So yeah, they need to just keep their feet on the ground, and I'm sure they will. I think they've kind of mentioned that in previous weeks, and I know Paul Giaconelli's mentioned that when he's spoken to yourself or Callum Carson as well. So it's just about focusing on the next game, and it's a tough one away at Hutchie Vale, another game on the road, but I'm sure the girls will have a lot of confidence after what was a very good result.
Yeah, unfortunately, clashes with the men's game against Hearts. Swapping cities, a team going to each place. But yeah, hopefully, we'll have another good 3 points on the board, another good performance, and yeah, hopefully, these kind of new signings continue to make a difference for us as well. But yeah, just got to wish them the best of luck for next week against Hutchie Vale.
I'm delighted to welcome Laurie Dunsire back onto Talk Livi. Laurie, you must be in pretty good spirits after another thumping win in the derby, with it being at Easter Road as well.
Yes, never gets old. Pumping Hibs as much as it's happened many times in the past. But yeah, definitely in good spirits, and I think more so than when I was last on after quite a tough first half of the season.
Yeah, you certainly sounded in good spirits commentating on the game. I heard a bit of your audio for the Tony Civic goal, the third one to wrap up into the next round. You certainly got a bit excited for that one.
Yes, I'm generally quite balanced when it comes to commentary, especially for club TV standards, I would say. However, I do reserve the right to just turn into a screaming lunatic when it's the derby, especially when you're at their patch as well. I don't know, you feel like more inclined to do it when you're sitting in the home end. Maybe that'll come back to bite me at some point. But yeah, it was very enjoyable.
I will back you up. You are very balanced, to be fair, when you do your commentary most of the time, Laurie. But quite right, you deserve to do that when it's the derby. But as you kind of mentioned there, last time we spoke, it was just before the last game at the Tony Macaroni Arena, and was it safe to say Hearts were kind of struggling to juggle European football, injuries? What did you kind of make of the European campaign in the end?
I mean, it was, to be honest, the first half of the season was largely expected. I can't remember if we spoke about it much on the podcast when I came on here, but I know I've spoken to you about it on another more general Scottish football podcast. I was anticipating quite a tough first half of the season for Hearts with the amount of games we'd have to deal with. I think David Martindale's commented on that in his interview before this match, that it'll be a different Hearts that Livi are facing now without having that kind of 2 games every week to deal with. And it was sort of twofold. It was the physical aspect of having to play 290 minutes, having to do all that travelling, but also the mental aspect of getting pumped during the week and then having to pick yourself up. And I think the confidence was seriously dented. And it doesn't matter that it's Fiorentina or Istanbul Başakşehir here who are pumping you, as you would probably expect against these teams with massive budget compared to Hearts.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter who you're playing. If you lose 4 or 5 goals in the week and you're run ragged, it's hard to then pick yourself up. Even if you are, with all due respect to the teams in Scotland, you're coming back and playing a weaker team. I think that showed in the players who are just struggling to get themselves up for games. We are missing a lot of players. We've had a ridiculous injury crisis this season. We've still got a load of players out. The difference being now that I think we've kind of got past that European section. The campaign itself was as I expected. I mean, we looked at the group. There was one team in there that we should be beating. We beat them both times. And two teams that we were unlikely to get anything against, and we got nothing against them. I think, yeah, we'd hope to learn from it, and maybe in future we could do a little bit more. I think in the home games against the likes of Fiorentina and Istanbul Başakşehir here, it was a bit disappointing at how passive we were at home. Yeah. We kind of sat off them. They didn't really have to get out of second or third gear to comfortably beat us. That's maybe Robbie and the team being a little bit wet behind the ears with European football, giving them too much respect that actually worked against us. But it was always going to be a learning curve, and I think it was always just about getting there and obviously getting the money that you get from guaranteed group stage football. So it was fun, but in many ways, I'm glad we're back to just a game a week most weeks.
You did have a nice wee trip to Italy amongst it, though, didn't you?
Yes, can't complain at that. Off duty, so got to watch some of the game. I think it was obviously harder to tell when you've had a few beers through the day. But that's you don't want to be seen as having a loser mentality. But if you're a Scottish team in Europe and you draw Fiorentina, it's largely about the prestige of the game and the experience of playing Fiorentina. They weren't having a very good spell themselves, but they've got a player that they had a player up front that Real Madrid had spent 50-something million on just like 2 years before. I mean, it's a whole different ball game, even compared to Celtic and Rangers. So yeah, it was largely about the experience. But if we get there regularly, which is what Robbie and the club want to do, then you'd hope to improve and at least get closer to teams like that.
And despite the fixture schedule and the injuries that you have faced, Hearts have only suffered one defeat in the last 12 domestically. That goes from prior to the World Cup break and afterward. You're actually unbeaten since the World Cup break as well. Are we starting to see Hearts push on second half of the season now?
Yeah, the bizarre thing is we're not really playing at our best. And you can take that in different ways, like, oh, this Hearts team aren't quite clicking yet, so are they that good? Or do you look at it and, well, Christ, this Hearts team aren't really playing at their best, but they're still dispatching teams. We stuck 5 goals past Aberdeen, and I didn't think we played as good as we can. We were 4-0 up.
I saw you tweet that, actually, after the game.
It was weird. I guess one of the things is, and you can, you've seen it so many times when you play Celtic or Rangers, I'm not going to begin to say that we're in the category of them, but we do have quality in certain areas of the pitch. So we've been very clinical in recent games. And I think when you trust your defence and you trust your attack, I think we've been comfortable against Aberdeen because we were ahead. Did we need to force the issue and play a different way? No, we let Aberdeen have a lot of the ball. Against Hibs as well. Yeah, we weren't at our best on Sunday. 3-0 definitely flattered us. However, because we went 1-0 up fairly early, there wasn't a need for us to be the ones in possession and taking the game to Hibs. This is one of the things I hate, and I saw Hibs fans tweet it recently, the expected goal stats and the fact that they are obviously, I think they are third or something on expected goals. The problem with expected goals for me, I don't know if you're a fan of this or not. I hope you're not, because I hate it.
Yes, it drives me up the wall. Lee Johnson's obsessed with the XG. He's absolutely obsessed with XG as well.
If you go behind in a game, then you're constantly chasing it to try and get a goal. So your XG goes up because you can't finish and because you're losing. Teams who are behind more have to push more in attack. So, and it's obviously not as simple as that, but you could get a game where one team has an XG of 3 or 4 and they don't score. But the reason it keeps getting higher is because they keep missing. So they keep having to attack. Whereas, there's games I've seen Hearts get ahead, and sometimes Robbie Nielsen's been criticised for it. If you go ahead and then you don't necessarily push for more goals, your XG doesn't go up because you were clinical enough to go ahead. So it does annoy me a little bit to that extent. And it's one of those stats that it needs far more context. But yeah, we've not been at our best at times. We've got a few more signings in the door, which has helped from a squad depth. But despite missing Gordon, Halkett, Boyce, Beningame, Halliday was missing last couple of games, we've had a lot of players on the bench who you'd expect to start as well. So I think we've got a fair bit of depth. I was looking at it the other week. I was like, Jesus, we've actually got quite a lot of options now. So I think we've done very well in the recruitment department. And I think the players seem to have a real determination and a real togetherness about them, which we maybe didn't have right at the start of the season. I think they've blended very well, and a lot of that is credit to the manager for keeping them together and keeping them confident as a team.
As you mentioned there, Craig Gordon, horrific injury that he suffered on Christmas Eve, but pretty good for a Hearts fan seeing him back in the gym already. That's quite impressive after the injury he sustained.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, he's 40 years of age now. Double leg break a month ago, and he's in the gym doing leg exercises, which is amazing to see. Yeah, I mean, obviously that was seen as a huge blow, and it's another one of those things where, you know, last season, don't get me wrong, last season Craig Gordon was he was the player of the year in the league, and he saved us a lot of times, and everyone said, you know, if it wasn't for Craig Gordon, Hearts would be fighting relegation. And so, well, he's been out, and in the 7 games he's been out, we've only conceded 1 goal from open play. It does help when you sign Zander Clark as your backup, who's pretty capable in the Premiership. But that was, I guess, again, you've got to credit the recruitment team. I don't think they expected Zander Clark to have to be number 1 every week yet, but they knew there had to be a succession plan. And given the fact that Zander Clark signed a 3-year deal, I assume that's what's been promised to him, because otherwise, why would Zander Clark sign as a number 2?
Yeah.
So you've got to credit the recruitment team for getting probably an option that most Premiership teams, maybe outside of Glasgow, would have happily had as their number 1 in at number 2. So he's done very well since he's come in. It's just softened the blow. But I think a lot of Hearts fans will be hoping Craig Gordon does recover. And I imagine he's the type of person he is. He won't give up. I think he'll do everything he absolutely can to try and get back to playing again. I doubt he'd ever play for Scotland again, because Scotland are going to have to look at other options now, obviously. But I think we will probably see him in a Hearts shirt again at some point.
I'm sure pretty much most football fans would love to see that, given the injury history that Craig Gordon has had. But you mentioned recruitment there. You actually signed another ex-Livi player not that long after we last faced you, which was Robert Snodgrass.
Yes.
What have Hearts fans made of Snoddy? From what I've seen on social media, he seems to have been quite a big hit since arriving at Tynecastle. Absolutely.
I would say probably our best player in the last couple of months. So I thought it was a good signing. It was post window, so we were at the point of only signing free transfers when he came in. I thought it was a smart signing. You know, lots of experience. He was still playing English Championship last season. I didn't anticipate quite the impact he would have. I thought it'd be a solid squad player. I didn't think he'd be playing every week. 35 years of age now, but he's been absolutely fantastic. So he's playing a kind of deep line playmaker role.
About to say, he's almost been playing in front of the back 3 or 4, hasn't he?
Because I thought he'd be maybe playing as one of the 2 supporting players for our number 9, because we kind of like to play sort of a front 3 with 2 dropping off at times. I thought he might fill in there, which is why I thought he's not going to have the legs for playing 90 minutes there every week. But no, he's kind of sat right in the middle of the park playing the orchestrator role, spraying passes around. And I think what really helps is you've often got a pairing of him and Cammy Devlin. Now, Cammy Devlin off the ball is fantastic. You know, there's no other player you want in the league off the ball than Cammy Devlin, snapping at heels, winning the ball back, getting all over the park. Cammy Devlin with the ball is not the best. He can have horrendous games on the ball. His passing, his vision. He's not a creative player. Whereas Snodgrass doesn't have the legs to run about now. But on the ball, I would say there's few better than him in the league, including Rangers and Celtic on the ball. And that's shown, you know, his delivery's been fantastic. Suddenly we're a threat from free kicks and corners constantly, because the delivery is almost spot on every time.
He's always had a bit of a wand of a left foot. Even when he was a kid with us, it was a brilliant left foot he has.
But I tell you what will be interesting, and knowing David Martindale is a very adept coach, and obviously you will have done your homework on us. He is the man to try and stop if you're going to stop Hearts playing. So St Mirren did it really well. They just doubled up and closed down Snodgrass constantly. And he, bizarrely, it was the game he got his only goal for Hearts away at Livingston. Probably the worst game he's had for us, because as soon as the ball came near him, St Mirren just had players swarming him, and he just kept losing possession. If you force Cammy Devlin back, if you get players on him, if he can't play, then Hearts struggle to get the ball forward. Because one thing we do with our style of play just now is we like to keep the ball, and you've probably seen that from the last 2 games against Livi, despite, I would argue, Livi being the better side really over the 2 games. Hearts had I think it was 73% possession away at Tynecastle, then 2/3 of the ball at the Tony Macaroni.
Yeah.
we will be risky. We'll keep the ball, but we will also take risks in it. We will play it short inside our own half when the players getting put under pressure. We will play risky passes to try and get ourselves up the park without going long. So that's where it'll be interesting, because Snodgrass is the man that makes our kind of style of play tick at the moment.
Yeah, now, you kind of mentioned the last game at Tynecastle there. It wasn't long after VAR was introduced, was it? Now, from a commentator's perspective, Laurie, how have you found dealing with VAR? Because I was at Tynecastle that afternoon, and not going to lie, didn't really have a clue what was going on. So I can only imagine how bad it is for you commentating on it.
Yeah, I mean, I hate VAR. I hated VAR before it came in. I've hated it in every league it's in. I actually don't even like the idea. I don't like the concept of VAR even when it works. I think it kind of ruins what makes football great, which is the spontaneity, the flow of things in football. However, when it's as bad as it is in Scotland, it's far, far beyond the depths of awfulness I thought it could be. In terms of being aware of what's going on, it is a problem. I've got a slight advantage in terms of I often do have a screen. We don't always, depends on the internet connection at certain grounds, but I often have a screen so I can at least see something back. But the funny thing was, in the game at home to Livingston, Hearts came forward and Hearts fans thought they were reviewing a Hearts penalty because the ball ended up in the Livy box and the Hearts player went down.
Well, see, that's what I thought as well when they said reviewing a penalty. And to be fair, we saw the pool because it was right in front of us. So we were like, that was a bit dodgy, but obviously opposite end of the park, that challenge happened. We were going, oh God, is he looking at a red card for like last man? Is he looking at something else? So we were absolutely oblivious to what was going on. But then you saw him kind of point, go and dish the red card out, and you're going, oh God, where's he putting the red card? And then he goes to Guy Rose, doesn't he? But it was very difficult to comprehend as a fan.
We had fans. Well, sometimes the fans down from me will look up looking for confirmation. They were like, it's a penalty. It's a penalty. And I was like, I think it is, but it's not the way you're thinking. I think it's the other end. And it looked, to be fair to VAR, as much as I criticise it, that was the right call. Obviously, it's not clear when you're in the ground, but Kairos, a clear pool of Nuble's shirt. It was obviously it wasn't an attempt to get to the ball, so it was a red card. And I think part of the issue as well is I've spoken to the stadium announcers at Tynecastle, and it frustrates them as much as anyone because VAR has like a screen, and until it changes from like white to purple or something, they can't say it's gone to VAR, and they don't always press the button or whatever they need to do to show that. And then when it changes, it just says, it doesn't say who it's for necessarily, it just says VAR check penalty. So if something's happened at both ends, fans won't know which way it's going. So I can't stand it. I think it's been a farce. The handball it's been a joke now. The handball rule is bad enough as it is. I think they've actually set a precedent in Scotland that they've started giving it. And like, don't get me wrong, I actually think right now Hearts we've had more calls in our favour via VAR than against us. It's not to say the second half of the season we might get a few more against us, but we've certainly benefited, I would say, more than it's cost us. But it's still just, it makes a mockery in games that you get some of the handballs. I mean, you've got players who'll just be trying to. The Kai Rose one against St Mirren, it should probably be a penalty right now. However, the only reason he put his hand out the way he did was because he was trying to keep it away from the ball. Yeah. He didn't want it by his side because he's desperately trying to get his hand away. So VAR, not a fan. Even when it works for us, overall, I'm not a fan of it, and I don't know if it ever will be.
Hopefully it's a quiet afternoon for you on Sunday with VAR, but it seems pretty obvious who your danger man is at the moment. Lawrence Shankland equalled a long-standing club record with John Robertson set with the last player to score 20 goals in a season for Hearts.
Yeah, 92, yeah.
Has he surpassed expectations a little bit for you guys this season?
Absolutely, and I think bizarrely it's not the goals so much. Now, I've never been someone who's seen a lot of Lawrence Shankland because he was generally out of the Premiership, and then the season he was with Dundee United was when we were down in the Championship, so I wasn't watching a lot of Dundee United in person or on a regular basis, so it's mainly highlights, goal clips. So I always thought he was just a poacher, that was it. He was a goal scorer. But some Dundee United fans, and there's one particular on Twitter, now I can't remember his name, but he does a lot of the Dundee United kind of stats and analysis, showed me some things that were quite interesting about his overall contribution, and the fact that when he was in the Premiership with Dundee United, his goal tally wasn't down to him missing chances, it was down to him being put out wide, being put in midfield, basically having no opportunities in the box under Mickey Mellon.
Yeah.
So his overall play is what's impressed me. Robbie very rarely starts him in a 9 role in recent months, especially since Liam Boyce has been out. He tends to start him either out to the right, number 10, and he's actually moved him into centre midfield a few games, actually flat in centre midfield with 2 forwards up front. And his link-up play has been fantastic, dropping deep, linking midfield to attack, going out wide. I think his goal at the weekend against Hibs showed that he's not just about being on the end of things. He picks up the ball out in the left. He's got 6 Hibs players between him and the goal, and he's only got 1 Hearts player in the box, and he manages to get between a couple, player 1-2, hit the bottom corner. So I've been really impressed with him overall. The goal tally's great. Obviously, there's a lot of penalties in there. Got to tell Hibs fans these days that apparently penalties still count as goals. Someone didn't tell me that had changed in football, that penalties no longer count as a goal. But yeah, his overall play has been really important. So it's interesting. What we will probably start with on Sunday, I should say, will be Shankland, Ginelli, and possibly one other. It could be Mackay. I'm not sure. I probably could do Mackay dropping out for this game. And he tends to put Ginelli as the 9, at least to start with, and Shankland kind of sits off him a little bit.
Now, you mentioned you've been playing predominantly a back 3, 4 in midfield, then 2 kind of in behind the forward. Are you expecting Hearts to line up pretty similar for the game on Sunday?
I think so. I mean, Robbie, we did have a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1, depending how you want to look at it, quite regularly being used recently. But certainly, if everyone he needs is available is in, obviously bar the long-term injuries, he seems to want to go with that 3-4-3. It can be quite fluid. He sometimes switches it in the game if you're in or out of possession, but for all intents and purposes, a 3-4-3. I guess the interesting parts of that will be in attack, because Barry Mackay, again, wasn't at his best against Hibs at the weekend. I'm not sure this will be a Barry Mackay game from the start. I think Livi will make it difficult for us. As I mentioned, we've been given a heap of possession in both games, but I actually thought Livingston were the better side in both matches this season. At Tynecastle, playing on the break very effectively. In the game, Tony Macaroni, I thought Hearts started very well, and there was a little tweak by David Martindale. I think the key thing here might be for both teams is whether Joe Newbley can make it, because I know David Martindale said he's an outside chance, because he's been a huge part of why Livingston have done pretty well the 2 games against Hearts this season. I thought he was man of the match in the first game, and he was certainly one of the best players on the park at Tynecastle. So if he's in, might change our game plan a little bit. But I don't know if that's still just a way we're going to wait and see if he could possibly be fit.
Yeah, Livy fans are desperate for Joe to be back available. He's not been available since the World Cup break. Got injured when we were over in Turkey. So fingers crossed that he can maybe at least make the bench to cause Hearts a few problems. But let's go predictions then, Laurie. What are you going for?
Oh, I mean, I think it'll be a tough game for both sides. I can't see it being a comfortable game. I think they're 2 sides in decent form. I was looking, Olivia unbeaten in 5, Hearts unbeaten in 9, I think you mentioned as well. So I think it'll be tight. I'm going to have to go with the Hearts victory, of course. We're on a decent run just now. Let's go with a scrappy, grinding out a 1-0 win, because we've not been conceding a lot of goals of late. So I'm hoping Joel Newbley doesn't make it, so there's maybe not as much threat for Livy up in the top half, and we can sneak a little goal maybe on the break. And yeah, 1-0 Hearts, why not?
As well as your Hearts commentating duty, you also have Scarcer in the Funnel podcast you present as well. For anyone who might want to tune into that, give it a wee plug, Laurie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing it's mainly Livy fans that listen to this, so I don't know how much they'll want to. But yeah, we're Scarves Around the Funnel. You can get us on most podcast apps. Myself, Mark Donaldson, and occasionally Ryan McGowan, which is more occasional these days because he plays for St Johnstone. Don't tell their fans that. If you fancy what? Maybe you'll want to if Livingston win because you can hear us being miserable about the results. There you go. Maybe a bit of Schadenfreude if it's a Livy win on Sunday.
You might see a spike in about 10 listeners then, if we do get a result of the weekend. But no, Laurie, thanks very much for coming back on the podcast. Always a pleasure to have you on, and best of luck for the rest of the season as well.
Apart from Sunday, of course, yeah.
Obviously.
Thanks, Euan. Have a good one.
Finally, we look ahead to another daunting trip to Glasgow to take on champions Celtic. Angus, do you reckon there's some positives we can take from our visit there just before Christmas going into this one? And the fact that we are in a decent bit of form, albeit we've got Hearts to play on Sunday.
This away game nonsense is a piece of piss, mate. 3 away wins on the trot.
On grass and plastic. We can play on anything.
Exactly.
Bring on the hybrid surface.
Go on. Give us the 3 points right now. Honestly, it's not even worth making a point of. Celtic at Parkhead, like it is what it is. Like we all know what to expect there. Anything is mainly a bonus. You know, you look at the golfing finance between the two teams. You look at the signings they've made already. You know, in this January transfer window, I think they're up to 5 now. You know, splashing kind of millions on players and stuff like that. You know, they're all obviously on good form. You know, they're obviously top of the league, playing some. Well, don't think they've been as hot recently as you'd maybe expect. What we've got to look out for, though, is dodgy handballs being given, you know, for absolutely nothing against our players. Although that would still point in the way that there is a conspiracy against them. Who knows who that is? But yeah, against Celtic, we know what we're going to expect. We're going to be on the back foot for quite a lot of the time. At least this time, though, we have a bit more kind of attacking options for us to use. I think last time we went there, we only had Bruce Anderson available. Now we've added in Bradley. Now we've got Curtis Guthrie back from injury. You know, we have a wee bit more, you know, kind of options as to, you know, in that final third. Hopefully, you know, I think the last game against them as well, you know, it took like our own goal to break them down, for them to break us down, and then they kind of like stormed into the game a little bit. But, you know, only 2-1 the last time out, which isn't too bad. I think we'll have Shamal George back for this one as well, so that may make a difference as well. Yeah, I think, you know, what we talk about with Celtic games away from home, we're not expecting anything. Nobody's expecting us to do anything. Well, let's just hope that we're a wee bit of thorn in the side for them.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that I feel probably a little bit better going into the game after our last visit to Celtic Park. And I think we tried to have a go in spells when we had the opportunity to. As much as we would get the anti-football, terrorist football tag from the majority of Old Firm fans for our performance. But from our perspective, I think we tried to have a go when we could and put Celtic under a wee bit of pressure in the second half, especially after getting that goal back from Nicky Devlin just before half-time. But yeah, it is what it is. Anytime you go to Celtic Park, you go to Ibrox, it's a case of hoping. It's a free hit. And I don't like describing games as a free hit, but that's what it is in the grand scheme of things. When you go to these places, you've got really nothing to lose. And you need to go there, be compact, be difficult to beat. You need to hope that your goalkeeper has a good afternoon. You need to hope your defence has a good afternoon. And you need to hope that they're misfiring. And you've then got a chance of getting a result. It's not even a guarantee that you've got a chance of getting a result because they just have so much quality throughout the park. I mean, they've just sold Juranovic for 10 million. I think Giacomakis, bit disappointed to see him go because he was always good for a missed penalty against us. But he looks like he's away. But as you say, they've brought in the boy, was it Alistair Johnson, who was at the World Cup with Canada, as a replacement for Juranovic, who looks the part so far. And they've dipped into the Asian market once again for a couple of players. The quality they've got is frightening across the pitch. Guys that have seemed to kicked into a bit of form, the likes of Aaron Moy looks like he's really settled in now. He's been very impressive, I think, in recent weeks from what I've seen. And Kyogo is just on fire this season. And we fell foul to Kyogo at Celtic Park. He scored against us at Livi as well. He's he's the ultimate kind of poacher, Kyogo, isn't he? With some of the goals, one-touch finishes that he gets inside the 18-yard box, and that's something we're going to need to be very wary of. The last game at Celtic Park, I noticed a big difference in the sort of deliveries that Celtic were putting in from wide areas, and it was all very much zipped crosses along the deck at a difficult height to defend across the 6-yard box in comparison to when we played there maybe last year and we're fortunate to get a 0-0 draw, and it was all floated crosses into the likes of Io, Tom Parks, Fitzwater, which is what they would like to defend in the grand scheme of things, and they made it very difficult. A classic example of that is the 2 goals that they scored, which was a very difficult height to defend. Ios ended up turning the ball into his own net, and then Kyogo's goal that he got on the stroke of half time as well. So I think that's something we need to watch out for. But in terms of how we set up, Angus, last time it was a back 5, 4 in front of that, and then Bruce up top on his own. Difficult to see us playing any differently to that, isn't it?
Yeah, very much the same. I'm going to be predicting for that. I think at this time you'll probably see maybe, Morgan Boyce as the left centre half alongside maybe Io and Jack Fitzwater, which seems like a decent kind of back five, three. Then you can have the choice between Penrice or Montano on the left and Devlin at right. And I think that would be a solid enough back lines for us to be confident of keeping them out a little bit more. We know what to expect. They know what to expect. We're going to be told how much of a disgrace we are to the league and stuff like that because of it, what every team does. But yeah, it's hard to see us lining up any other way. I think we did try that once. I think it was in the COVID season, and it went dreadfully. I think it was like a 5 or 6-0 loss when we tried to go man for them, which you just can't. So yeah, try to keep it compact, try to keep it tight, try to keep them as away from their goal as much as possible by putting as many bodies in front. That's just simply what we've got to do.
Yeah, it's as much as we would get criticised from Old Firm supporters, it's, as you mentioned, that's a good example to use. When we did try and go a bit more man for man and play a bit higher press on them in that COVID season, they picked us off, and that was a Celtic team that were horrific that season by their standards, and they still picked us off and hammered us 6-0. So what would you rather do? Have a go and get pumped 6-0 or be compact and difficult to beat and give yourself an opportunity of a result? I know what I would rather watch my team do, and that's try and get the result. So it's going to be a very, very difficult game, and as you mentioned, it's very difficult to see us playing any other way to how we have done in recent seasons at Celtic Park. But if I had to ask you for a prediction, Angus, what are you going for?
I'll go for a sadly 2-0 defeat.
2-0 defeat. I'm actually behind you now. Somehow I'm behind you in our prediction league. You're now a point ahead of me. I think you got 2 back-to-back scores. But you know what? It's all just good fun. So I'm...
Oh, he's now losing. Oh, it's all just a bit of fun.
Yeah, it's all just a bit of fun. It's all just a bit of fun, Angus. It's just good-natured humour. Really. Somebody has to get a result off them at some point, don't they? Somebody has to. Why not us? Why not? Why not us? If I was on the Homeboys podcast speaking to Scott and I came out with this prediction, I'd get absolutely laughed at by all his listeners. But I'm going to go 1-1. I'm going to go 1 each. We're going to get a dodgy penalty for handball, and the conspiracy will continue. And we're going to score the penalty. That's... You heard it here first.
We'll miss the first one, and then we'll get to take it again until we score, which will take about 50 minutes.
Yes, but you heard it here first. You heard it here first, Livi fans. Have I been drinking and it's 9:45 on a Thursday morning? Questionable, but
that may be like the funniest part of it is that the fact that you've said we'll score a penalty is more mad than you saying that we'll get a draw.
Quite possibly is the maddest thing I've said on this podcast. But hey, tell you what, you'll be coming to me congratulating me on my fantastic prediction when it all comes true a week on Wednesday. But yeah, there's a good chance I might be wrong as well. But here's hoping. We can only live in hope. For those of you who keep an eye on our social media, we were running a competition recently. Both Scott Pittman and Christian Montano were in the club shop signing the new 2023 calendar. We managed to get our hands on one. Thank you very much to Paul at the club shop who managed to organise that for us as well. But we decided to give it away as a little prize and competition. And the question we were asking Angus was, when we last played Stenny, so not just at the weekend there, prior to that, the 4-0 game in the COVID season, who was our goal scorer for our 4th goal that evening? And the answer was...
I'm drawing a blank now. We literally talked about it. Was this Platnik?
Oh, God. Right, okay, so it's clear to see Angus didn't win the competition. So there you go, we've not rigged it. Aaron Taylor Sinclair, Angus. Aaron Taylor Sinclair. We had a few entries. I did the draw before we started recording today, and the winner was, give us a drum roll, please, Angus. I don't think your mic picks up on the drum roll. That was all just radio silence there. But anyway,
you can just see me just going wild in the camera.
I could just see your camera shaking a little bit. But it was at Mac92K, so who won the competition. KMac92 on Twitter. So if you're listening, give us a DM and we can arrange to get the calendar to you. But congratulations, well done on winning the prize. And we might have a few other little competitions coming further down the line as well.
Perfect. Yeah, congratulations. And yeah, that's it for this week's episode of Talk Livi. Thanks again to every single one of you for tuning in week and week out. If you can, we'd love to hear your feedback. So either leave us a review on iTunes or simply message us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram.
As Angus said, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Search Talk Livi to find us, and you'll find all the links to our weekly episodes on there as well. You can also find all our episodes, including this one, on all good podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. We're also on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if none of those options suit you, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find every single episode we've done over the last few years.
That's it for this week. Thanks again to all our listeners for tuning in. Let's hope for another great week following the Lothian's finest football team.
To the Premier Division.